You work your way up, and like I would argue at this point I'm still on the manager side of things, maybe more than I should be. I think it's just about understanding the value of your time and being more efficient with it. And really it was a game of efficiency.
Save yourself a shit ton of time by never having to go to a property to open a door.
Deal with your tenants through text message,
yes.
If not through some form of software. Avoid taking calls whenever possible.
Your real value as a real estate investor is going to come from your creativity, your ability to connect people, deals, and money together, and then just raising money in general.
When I give money to someone and I come back a day later and it's done, how wonderful that was. Do I want to cut my neighbor's grass for 15 bucks? Well, no, I don't. Well, why am I cutting my own grass for 15 bucks?
What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and we're back with another video with Kellan. If you don't remember Kellan's backstory, he's built up a massive portfolio in just like 2 to 3 years, all doing BRRRR projects here in London, Ontario. And as he's built and scaled his business, I thought it'd be great to sit down with him and both of us just kind of chat about how do you build out the systems to really create a real estate business rather than a real estate hobby. Because Kellan's right now at that stage of deciding, does he want a real estate hobby or does he want a real estate business? They're two very different animals, two completely different beasts. So we're going to dive deep into exactly the systems and processes that we currently use and some of the ones that we know that we should use, but we're currently not doing it. So let's dive into today's video. What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, sitting down with Kellan again. And so in today's video, we're going to kind of dive into just how can we systematize our real estate investing process. I find a lot of investors, when they first start building out their portfolio, they end up building themselves a job rather than financial independence. And that's really a struggle and a concern of mine because that's really not the goal for a lot of us as real estate investors. So I think both myself and Kellan at different phases in our real estate investing journey, we were definitely the guys with our sleeves rolled up, extremely hands-on. But as both of us have progressed during our real estate journey, we've continued to add layers between us and our tenants and our processes and just really fleshing that all out. And I don't think either of us read a book or had a guru teach us. It was really through the school of hard knocks.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, I think a really great place to start would probably be talking about the benefits of working in your business, maybe to start. Because then we can show that, yeah, we understand what some of the good things are, and we can understand that, and then it's like why we've moved on, right? So I think
there's like a saying that's almost cliche now in my circles, and that's the difference between working on your business and working in your business. Working in your business is sleeves rolled up, you're the guy answering all the phone calls, you're maybe even going and unclogging the toilets, you're definitely talking to every contractor, every tenant you're placing, all that stuff. Working on your business is, talking to financiers, talking to wholesalers to get you the next deal, focusing on building out your corporate structure with your accountant or lawyer. Those are activities that are much more high level and things that, we would generally associate more with the CEO rather than a manager level. Where a lot of real estate investors first, they start off as either the employee or manager level before they really transition into the CEO role.
I think it'd be a cool way to do it where you can maybe analyze the value of your time in one way or another. So early on, we know our time is less valuable in money-wise, financially, right? So, you bought your first property, your time's not worth a whole lot. Maybe you don't have another down payment ready to go. So you want this deal to go well. So you're kind of working in it a bit, right? You're also kind of learning how contractors work. You're on site more often, learning the ropes. I think there's huge value in that early on when your time is worth a little bit less. Cleaning up after things, sweeping, whatever, just being on site, showing that you're active in the role. And when I was doing that on my first property or two, I found that people worked way harder when I was around versus when I was not. So you actually get better value out of your contractors as well. So there's definitely some good value in it. I would argue it may even be more value for someone who knows less about construction than it would be for people who know more about it, because if you already know that stuff, then it eliminates the value that comes with learning that. So you already know it, then you know how to hire it too, and you know how to verify the work was done properly. So I would almost jump in pretty early, maybe from the second property or so, to hiring that stuff out and then focusing on the acquisition from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think when it comes to construction and just the insides of a building, for a lot of real estate investors that maybe don't have any hands-on experience, it can be extremely intimidating. But once you start doing it yourself or watching, some of the subcontractors you're hiring do it, all of a sudden it becomes way less intimidating. So with plumbing, all of a sudden you realize oh shit, like it's pretty much Lego, and as long as I understand how gravity works, I can do a lot of this shit myself and just figure out a bit of the basic code, and you're good to go. Whereas at first you're like, yeah, how does like a toilet flush? Like how does like water get into my toilet? Like, and all these things that seem very intimidating when you look at them, say on the macro scale, like, oh yeah, there's all kinds of plumbing going on, but like, then you start to learn some basic rules of thumb, like, oh, you don't want plumbing on the outside walls of a property. And you're like, oh, well, I guess that makes sense. It's Canada, shit freezes. And all those little tips really aggregate into giving you the confidence to go out there and like hire competently. Where I think at the start, if you don't know anything, it's a lot easier for people to take advantage of you and play up problems when they come into them.
Yeah, and like you start doing those grungy, awful roles, and you really eventually start to appreciate that the fact that the people who are doing that stuff, what they're in there doing, you appreciate their role, you understand their value a little bit more clearly in terms of this is more of a skilled labor thing, this is why they charge more, they're bringing real value here, and you start to understand your value in that you're like, my time is worth more than this in terms of value, so I'm going to step off and start dealing with more acquisition side of things, running it more like a business. And in the E-Myth, they talk about the worker, the manager, the owner. You eventually want to be more on the owner side of things, but like you work your way up. And like I would argue at this point, I'm still on the manager side of things, maybe more than I should be. So I'm still acting as the GC on a lot of my projects, the general contractor. So I'm telling the plumber what to do, and then the electrician what to do, and the framer and the boarder, rather than getting somebody hired who does that stuff and points those fingers for me. I think that property management and general contracting, I think that you can go quite a long time and still get value out of that position. But at some point, and I don't know where that line is drawn, maybe if I had to throw something out there, maybe somewhere around the 10 property mark, you start going, all right, now my time is a little bit more valuable. I'm maybe not even worth acting as the GC on these projects. I know how to hire a GC now, and I can kind of move on to bigger and better things.
And so just drilling down a bit more on that, what's your time really worth scale of things, there's a few different ways that I think we can approach and try and look at that problem. So one is, what are you currently making in your day job? That's probably a good initial indicator of what at least you believe your time's worth. If you didn't believe your time was, or if you believed your time was worth more than that, you'd probably be seeking other employment, right? So if you're currently making, say, $60,000 a year, assuming what, a 2,000 hour a year employment, that's going to work out to about $30 an hour. So initially, pretty much any job you can do that's going to cost you more than $30 an hour that you can do yourself, there's probably a strong argument to like at least do it at first, learn it, get comfortable with it. But again, in my opinion, once you've understood the fundamentals of that skill set, long term, your real value as a real estate investor is going to come from your creativity, your ability to connect people, deals, and money together, and then just raising money in general. Those are things that can provide exponential value, where at the end of the day, saving $30 an hour will only ever save you $30 an hour.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and a ton of opportunity cost missed while saving that $30.
So I'm sure people are a little bit confused, because I started off saying like, don't really do a lot of this. Then we kind of transitioned to do this for a bit. How long? Like, how long should they be the guys doing demo at the job site? How long should they be, standing there looking over the plumber's shoulder while they're snaking a drain or like scoping a line?
I think there may be certain things that like within the first year you want to start hiring out. I never was like super handy in terms of like, I didn't know how to frame or board or any of that stuff. I knew how to mud a little bit. So pretty early on, I hired that stuff out personally. Now, what I did isn't necessarily what's right for everyone, but within like 3 months or so, I was like, I'm starting to understand the real value of what when I give money to someone and I come back a day later and it's done, how wonderful that was. So that was a click, that kind of a moment clicked for me, right? It's like when you're getting a roof done, we're not going to do that. A lot of times we're not going to do that ourselves. So we pay the thousands of dollars or whatever it is, we come back, we see the roof is done, and similar things can happen if you get the right people in place inside the property. So in terms of timeline, I think it's going to be, I hate to say it's very subjective, but like it's going to be more than likely your second, maybe third property. At that point, I would definitely start stepping away.
Yeah.
Maybe depending on what your passive income is, depending on your family life, depending on your work balance life, your ability to do it without burning out. There's a lot of factors to consider there that you kind of need to do some self-introspection. So if you can look at, well, you know what, I'm grinding every evening. This seems like something that I just can't carry on forever. Well, at that point, you probably want to start hiring out. So it's going to be based on how you're feeling and how you start to value your own time, and like some factors that aren't necessarily going to be just timeline oriented or passive income oriented. And it's also going to be based on, do you have other deals in the pipeline? Do you think you can bring other deals to the pipeline? Are you just waiting for a wholesaler to bring you a deal? And in that case, maybe, right now you don't have another deal ready for you and you don't intend to go find them on your own. So maybe now that evening or for that week, you put some time in. I think it's this transitionary period, but at some point, I think almost everyone, almost any investor who's serious and plans on scaling should go 100% owner and not own a screwdriver. I think that that's the ultimate goal if you're planning on really scaling up your properties. I mean, another thing to consider is if you enjoy it or not. So, there's some immeasurable value in terms of I enjoy turning that screwdriver, but at some point it's like cutting your grass, right? I like to think of it like, do I want to cut my own grass? Well, maybe I do. It's like, do I want to cut my neighbor's grass for $15? Well, no, I don't. Well, why am I cutting my own grass for $15?
Cashflow Tribe.
Hey YouTube, have you checked out Cashflow Tribe yet? It doesn't matter whether you're an experienced, seasoned investor or brand new to the game. I can probably predict if you're currently not having the level of success you want as a real estate investor, it's due to one thing. That one thing is you're not making enough offers, plain and simple. You need to be making more offers as a real estate investor if you want to hit those big, audacious goals that you're setting for yourself. So here's the deal. Cashflow Tribe, that's the community that myself and Ben were making together. And so Ben's actually so busy trying to provide value to you guys that he had to take off there. But here's the deal. Cashflow Tribe is really a one-of-a-kind community focused on results. That's the difference between us and everyone else. We want to get you guys those results. I'm tired of seeing people commenting on my YouTube channel for 2-3 years now, but they're not making offers. What's holding you back? I'm going to guess that it's either a lack of confidence or a lack of competence. And we cover both of those things in Cashflow Tribe. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make you guys a 7-day free trial offer. You can join Cashflow Tribe completely free, get it tested out. If you like it, great, stay and pay. If you don't, well, I hope you at least find one great idea that you can take away and use to start making more offers, gain more deals, and finally start making the money related to real estate investing that's probably why you're watching my YouTube channel. So let's do this, guys. Let's make 2020 your year.
Cashflow Tribe.
Almost everyone, almost any investor who's serious and plans on scaling should go 100% owner and not own a screwdriver. I think that that's the ultimate goal if you're planning on really scaling up your properties. I mean, another thing to consider is if you enjoy it or not. So, there's some immeasurable value in terms of I enjoy turning that screwdriver, but at some point it's like cutting your grass, right? I like to think of it like, do I want to cut my own grass? Well, maybe I do. It's like, do I want to cut my neighbor's grass for $15? Well, no, I don't. Well, why am I cutting my own grass for $15?
Yeah, that's the best analogy I can think of there, is really just once you start breaking it down like that, what we start to realize is this idea of trying to save a few dollars here or there. In my opinion, that's really coming because you have a scarcity mindset, where abundance mindset is, hey, I can just go raise some money, go use that money to go execute, on the project as originally planned, and then I'm going to go spend my time and find the next project.
Yeah.
Because I trust in my confidence and competence to be able to raise money as needed for these deals. And the real thing is, as long as you're getting real deals with real margins, real profit potential, it's easy to do that. When you're trying to force a deal because the numbers don't work, because you just emotionally bought rather than rationally and logically buying, that's when you're going to find that scarcity mentality really doubles down.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's going to be a real struggle to spend any money on the project.
And I think it's funny that you and I are able to understand that so deeply because we fought our way out of it, right? Like we started in that scarcity mentality, and it was very like we wanted to save every dollar. We weren't necessarily couponing, but we were very frugal people, right? And like it's not that we aren't. In fact, I think it's just about understanding the value of your time and being more efficient with it. And really, it was a game of efficiency. We thought, hey, I can save $10 here, so why not save $10 here? And now we're like, well, it's actually more efficient to make $20 here and not save that $10 here. So it's not so much about, I think it's about, it is about reframing that scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
And I think I used to hear this when I was frugal, and I was like, okay, they're just being lazy. They're just like, they have more money than me. They're just, and whatever, I don't know. I don't remember where my mind was at, but it was like, they're wrong. I'm just going to move on. Like scarcity just sound, it's just a bad term, but like, I think that I know that there really is value in the mental bandwidth, right? Of just like not like keeping that availability in your mind to focus on other things, relax better in the evenings, maintain momentum with your investing and not get burnt out. Like there's huge value in understanding the value of your time, understanding where what your mind is churning on and using it for valuable things. So this is good because Matt and I are in different scenarios at this point. You're not managing your properties anymore. You have in-sourced property management at this point, and I'm still self-managing. So I'm battling with a bit of a scarcity mentality. Maybe I could pay someone $1,500 a month and now they can manage my portfolio. So that could be nice. And then I could focus my time and attention on other things. And then I start debating, well, no one's going to do it as well as I can. So maybe now my properties are worth a little bit more because I'm maintaining them better. I'm getting higher rents. I'm getting more quality tenants, fewer problems. And I start putting value on those things. So I often debate what my true value of my time is. Am I actually saving more than $1,500 a month by self-managing? And then I start to figure out how much time am I spending on the self-management. So a lot of it tends to be more general contracting and more troublesome tenants and turnovers and stuff like that for buying these troublesome properties. But once I get them up and running, it tends to be a fairly easy thing to manage. I have 32 and coming up on 34 units soon. And if I had to measure how much time it takes out of my day to manage the tenant issues, it'd probably be 20 to 30 minutes a day. And okay, so time-wise, almost nothing, very little. But what about what's going on in my head? Well, when I want to buy another property, I can think about buying this sixplex. Well, now I think, well, I'm not going to manage that sixplex. And in my head, I'm going, there's a lot that goes into buying this sixplex. But if you're in a position like Matt, where you're like, I'm going to buy it and I'm going to hand it off to property management and I'm going to move on and buy another property. Well, that's a whole different mentality. And I could definitely see the value in something like that because you analyze deals differently at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the one thing to be really aware of, regardless of whether you're self-managing, semi-self-managing, or completely outsource the management, is when we run our numbers, we should still run our numbers as if we're going to have to at some point use property management. Or as if we're also at some point going to have vacancy, as if we're at some point we're going to have to do repairs and maintenance. Again, often a self-managed building will require a lot less repairs and maintenance. It'll have way lower vacancy. And those are great things to add to your bottom line when it makes sense, both financially and from a time perspective. But at some point in time, if you're doing this right, you want to phase yourself out, right? Unless your goal was to build yourself a job. Again, no judgment there, but I suspect the vast majority of my viewers are coming at this from someday I want to quit the job, move on with my life, and whether that's build an empire, travel the world, dedicate yourself to some service or community that means a lot to you, doesn't really matter. But it's really important that we hone in and we're very accurate and realistic with our numbers and projections when running them.
And it's important too because it's also what the buyer is going to do, and it's also what the appraisers and the banks are going to do. So you need to have these numbers baked in. It's not just it's maybe your reality is you're managing and you don't have any vacancy, but you need to budget for those things regardless for everybody, including yourself, because maybe you want to step out of that role eventually, or maybe there's situations where it's not so much vacancy in that I can't find a tenant because we have serious demand for housing at at this point. It's more tenant trashed a unit, I got to take a month to renovate the thing before I can get another tenant back in. Or a tenant didn't pay and now they left, and I don't necessarily want to go through the court troubles and stuff to try and get that money back, so it's a wash. Well, that's a vacancy in my opinion, right? These are things that we want to budget for, and they're outside of regular repairs and maintenance.
Yeah, I love it. Anyways, this video is a little bit more higher level than I initially planned, so let's just rapid fire some quick ways that you're able to save yourself time. So I'll go first, guys. When I was first starting to self-manage, what I focused on was never having to go and open a door. That's the most frustrating thing in the world. I don't care whether you're dealing with students and they lock themselves out of their bedroom or the house, whether you had to send a plumber or a contractor over. I hate having to drive across the city just to open up a door. It's terribly inefficient. So one of the first things we did was just install like Wiser keypad locks. Not sponsored by Wiser, so go use whatever keypad lock service you want, but get like a punch code one. It's going to make your life so easy. If for whatever reason that's impractical or maybe not allowed if you're in a condo board, then get yourself one of those like key locks, right? With just like the punch code where you can like hang it on something or like bolt it somewhere. Again, it's going to save you so much time and energy. A real pro tip in my opinion is if you really want to simplify student rentals is literally like create a board in your utility room. Just like what I've seen other landlords do is they throw up a sheet of plywood and you put the bolts on and you have 6 different sets of those keypads, one for each room, so that a tenant can never like get access to another tenant's room. And when you buy these things in bulk on Amazon, not that expensive.
That's a great
But again, save yourself a shit ton of time by never having to go to a property to open a door. Hate it.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I think that was a huge one for me. And little pro tip, I use the Schlage keypad locks. A lot of them have been breaking on me, so I switched to Wiser recently, and they have worked better. So #Wiser.
Hit me up for that sponsorship, Wiser.
But obviously, I think some of this goes without saying, but deal with your tenants through text message, if not through some form of software. Avoid taking calls whenever possible. They tend to suck a lot more of your time than sending a quick message.
And let's kind of dive down into that, because that's like a bigger tip than I think a lot of people will realize. Because one, now it's in writing. So we've got a clear explanation of what's going on. We've responded appropriately, hopefully. So again, it's very clear that like there's communication going back and forth, where again, you can pick up a call quick and then something else happens and you're going to forget about it, or maybe there's a misunderstanding, a bad connection, anything like that. You're really setting yourself up for failure, in my opinion, if you're depending upon voice communication, because it just, maybe we tell them something and they forget it. So again, make it simple on yourself as well. That way you're responding on your schedule. So I know something that I've heard other landlords talk about is literally delaying the frequency of communication. So sometimes those problems just solve themselves. Hey, my refrigerator's making a weird noise. Oh, actually just figured it out. It was that the milk was rattling because it was on the edge and about to fall. Cool. Well, I'm glad I didn't pick up a phone call for that.
Exactly.
And that's just like tip of the iceberg example, but those problems like are so common that like, especially depending on the type of tenant and their neediness. So again, like using some sort of text communication, whether that's email, written, software, it doesn't really matter, but it's going to make your life a lot easier. And when you get into managing multiple properties, it's going to just allow you to keep everything in buckets.
Yeah, for sure. And 99% of the time I'm dealing with text messages. I changed my voicemail to say, please send me a text. And so most of the time that's what I'm doing. There are situations where you definitely do want to handle it via phone call or in person or whatever it may be. Hopefully the worst case is on the phone, because tenants tend to have this adversarial relationship with their landlord, and sometimes a phone call can help humanize you a bit, and they can say, okay, this is cool, and kind of maintain a positive relationship. So that can be worth your time as well.
And I would still recap with a text message afterwards.
Yes, exactly. Document this stuff for sure. So as discussed this, and they say, cool. Another thing that seems to probably go without saying is automatic deposits. So e-transfers, and then most banks allow automatic deposits. So maybe you set up a different email address for each property and it just gets auto deposited when the tenant sends you the e-transfer. Keypads are key for sure. Yeah,
I think those are 3 fantastic tips for everyone. So again, like keyless entry or keypads or key locks, anything of that nature. Communicate through text and summarize voice conversations through text afterwards. And then finally, automatic deposits or e-transfers is going to save you a ton of time. There's no reason you should be driving again across the city to pick up rent. If not, really set the expectation that they're going to give post-dated checks or mail you checks. Because we don't want to waste our time running around. All of a sudden, then you're coordinating schedules. I'm not going to be home till 7 p.m. Then they're running late. Nah, screw all that stuff, guys. Really simplify your business, because at some point in time, also, you're going to want to hand this off. And you're not going to want to have to explain that George and, Unit 3 at 123 Main Street, when he says meet at 7, he actually means 7:15, because he's always running 10 minutes late.
Yeah, and I think you can even set it up with your bank where if a tenant really wants to pay with cash or really wants to pay with bank draft, they can just go to the bank and deposit it for you. So there's ways to do that. And this is me needing to take my own advice, because I have a couple of tenants who still pay with check, and I go pick it up, and it's a total waste of my time. So
Awesome. Well, I love this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Smash that like button, hit the subscribe button if you're new to my channel. And Kellan, if people want to catch up with you or follow along on your journey, what's the easiest way?
Yep, so it's just kellan.pan on Instagram, so I'm sure Peter will put a little notification.
Well, that's how Kellan and I go about doing real estate investing with our systems and procedures. But I'd love to hear, what items do you think that we forgot to mention, or what items are we blind to, or what systems and procedures do you currently use that you think we should be actually scribbing from your books? Jump in that comment section down below, give me your feedback, and let me know, what other standard operating procedures do you currently use in your real estate business? Otherwise, if you want more Kellan videos, make sure you check out this playlist right here, or if you just want other great general Canadian real estate content, check out this playlist right here. And until next time, remember, making money is a team sport. There's more than enough money in this world for us to all make it, but if you're not saving it, I mean, like, what's the point?